Hi, guys, and welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show. We help Muslims and non Muslims to handle Islam in the 21st century. My name is Mustafa, and this is my co host in the nick of time. If you wish to talk about Islam, the ideology, you have come to the right place. We cover current Islamic news, Islamic scripture, some crazy comments, and a weekly topic about Islam to examine, critique, and analyze. If this is not enough Islam for you, please drop by our Discord to discuss any further questions about Islam. We condemn any form of discrimination, violence, misogyny, slavery. However, we do embrace free speech and criticism if it's factual and correct. Thank you for stopping by and enjoy the Gin and Tonic Show.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. You're finally seeing our lovely faces after such a long time. My name is Mustafa. This is Nick over here with the microphone, with the advanced microphone. Say hello, Nick.
Hello, everyone. It's glad to be using some amazing equipment finally instead of my cheap headphones.
And we have a guest today, Mr. Pouya. Would you like to do the introductions for yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm a writer. I recently published my first book. It's called Tsel, the Shadow of Death.
So, Pouya, tell us. So, we're going to do this interview. So, tell us a bit about your background. Where were you from? And, just a brief summary of yourself.
So I was born in Tabriz, Iran.
Mhm.
That's the province of East Azerbaijan. When I was 2, we moved to Wales. My parents were studying for their PhDs. Then when I was 8, we moved back to Iran until I was 17. And in 2014, I moved to Canada, where I've lived ever since. Do you want to hear about when I started writing?
We would love to hear about when you started writing. Absolutely.
Writing and such, yeah.
Yeah, I started writing when I was 12, and I've always loved reading ever since I learned how to. And in university, I studied genome biology and English.
For sure, yeah. And like the book itself that you wrote today, or wrote and you're talking about today. So, for the audience themselves, can you give us an introduction about the book itself, a summary, some details on it?
Okay, it starts with the Canaanite gods that's from northern Syria. Anat, the goddess of war, fights with Mot, the god of death. She goes to ridiculous lengths to kill him, and the main character and narrator's story starts from there when Mot's reincarnation is picked up by 2 archangels, Azrael and Samael. The main character's power ends up exceeding their expectations when they try to lock him away, and he, as a baby, ends up in the hands of the demon Lilith. Lilith names him Tsel, meaning shadow in Hebrew, and marries Samael so that he can be shared between angel and demon kind. The story follows from there with Tsel gaining new siblings and finally going out on his own adventures once he's old enough.
So, do you happen to use I'm guessing Canaanite lore, but also do you happen to use I'm guessing a lot of Abrahamic lore
Yes.
from Islam, Christianity, and Judaism combined?
Yeah,
together?
I started with Islamic lore.
Yeah.
And then Christian, then Jewish.
Yeah. So it's it's a very interesting mix that you have.
Yeah.
Maybe ask what is your religious background or belief system was and what it is now.
I used to be a Shia Muslim, 12er. That's what I grew up as. Now I'm an atheist.
Yes.
I don't believe in any sort of God at all.
Yeah, so we have someone similar to myself. I'm also a Shia 12er from the Isna Ashari sect as well. So this is actually amazing. So we have another ex-Muslim on our as a guest. So the what do you call it? What inspired you to write this book? That is what was the inspiration behind it?
When I when I heard about angels and demons, I wanted to like try to imagine how they could exist scientifically back when I was still a believer.
Hmm.
So I imagined this sci-fi story of them. So like I conceptualized what if they're interdimensional beings, or like what if they're uh, made out of energy and in a form that we don't recognize as life. So that's how that would explain how we can't find them.
Yeah.
But then I realized, but at some point I started questioning the lore behind things. Uh, I looked at this was mainly with Islamic lore about angels, where I looked at what they were doing and their personalities, and I discovered they were rather xenophobic and genocidal, just like their god. So I considered perspectives other than their own, like what what if someone else had been writing the Quran, for example, and not the writer, not the current writer, assuming God is real in that instance.
Yeah. So you
Um,
feel that this is more human work rather than divine work, that is, in essence.
yeah, but under the assumption that God was real, God and angels were real, of course they'd make themselves out to be the good guys.
Yeah. Yeah. This is very interesting take. Overall, like, do you how much what is your view on what do you call it, let's start off with the Islamic ideology in general, like the mythology, the lore, like what is your what do you call it, opinion on that?
Well, the ideology itself, I don't think it has a place in the 21st century. Uh, Islam, it does have some certain benefits like learning and spreading of knowledge. So like during the Islamic Golden Age, that was a pretty good time for Islam. But when the times are tough, Islam can lend itself to extremism pretty fast. Uh, as for the lore and mythology, I found that it took a lot from other religions and other cultures. Some stuff it made up by itself was made up original, like was original.
Hmm.
Uh, but largely it was taken from Jewish myths, I believe.
And when you looked into the Jewish mythology and Canaanite origins, um, like so do you I'm guessing, do you like looking into the ancient Near East, the mythos behind it? So would you like to share like your fascination with that?
The Middle East.
Yeah, the Near East, yeah, the Middle East, yes. So like the Middle Eastern mythology, that is generally like older, I would say pre-Islamic, pre-Judaic. um,
Yeah, the reason I picked the Canaanites to focus on was because one of the origins behind Jehovah or Allah I found that was the god El,
hmm.
El, from who is the head of the Canaanite pantheon, and he and Jehovah seemed to have a sort of merging at some point, where attributes from one transferred over to the other.
And do you feel actually I should not keep asking questions. Nick, do you happen to have any questions for our guest?
Yeah, mine would be more of the modern sense or the repercussions of the book, because obviously, although I read the book, it was funny story is I believe you mentioned that I got my copy of the book before the offer version.
Yes,
So some people, although the book was absolutely amazing, I really liked it. Some people would actually consider it blasphemous. How has the community taken to your publishing?
the writing community has been pretty positive about it. As for the religious community, they haven't really responded much to it. I guess it's not popular enough yet to get much attention from them. Um, The only two responses I can think of, one was one guy on Reddit called me and other ex-Muslims losers and said he's going to downvote everything on the subreddit. But I think he was banned after that. And another religious person I know, he's also a writer and good friend of mine. He said he's a Catholic. He said he didn't like it at first when my story was explicitly anti-religious, but now that it's implicitly so like it doesn't outright say anything against Islam or anything like that, he's more okay with it.
Yeah, so overall, in your the writing of the book, I know for many people who do leave the religion and such, it does take quite a journey. So, how would you say your history with writing of the book itself, the research and such, help you in aiding with the, like generating of questions on your own faith? Is there like a timeline for that, or was it like almost instantaneous?
No, there was a timeline for it. I started when I was moving to before I moved to Canada. I actually promised myself I'd read the whole Quran and do like however many rakats of prayer if I moved to Canada. And I didn't actually. When I actually tried reading the Quran, I found that it was testing my faith, so I couldn't actually get through it. And what changed my mind in the end was the last straw for me was the angel thing, as I mentioned, them being xenophobic.
Did you? I'm curious to ask. It's a little more Quran specific. Did you come across the story of Harut and Marut in the Quran?
I believe so.
Yeah, it's very briefly mentioned. I think in chapter 2, Surah Al-Baqarah, and there's so many myths about them. Like they teach magic to the Babylonians or something. They come to Babylon. They teach people magic, and do you incorporate that into your story?
I haven't used Harut and Marut specifically,
Yeah.
and magic is something. In Islam, I've also heard people say the devil taught magic to people.
Yeah.
So I use more of that.
Yeah, because there is the there are allegedly duas against black magic and stuff. Um, and do you incorporate jinns in your story, or genies in your story?
Yes. In my story, jinn, I use it as a general term for spirits because jinn means hidden in Arabic, right?
Yes.
And so non-angel spirits are all considered jinn
Yeah.
in my story, but I don't use the term that often. I just
Yeah.
use the term spirit for all including angels.
Yeah. So you don't necessarily like dive into the details because like there's the Ifrit al Jinn as well that's mentioned in the Quran and the
Oh, I
Islamic.
have Ifrit in my book as well.
Oh,
They're
you have an Ifrit in
yeah,
your book as well. Yeah, that's
yeah, a couple of
interesting.
them.
Wow.
They're I explain them off as like a tribe of jinn.
Oh, really? So basically, a separate tribe of jinn. And what characteristics do you, without any spoilers, spoiler free, what characteristics do you give them to be distinct from the rest of the cast?
I say they live in a desert, in the deserts of Arabia,
Yeah.
and they usually avoid humans. As with other spirits, they can shapeshift, and unlike demons, self-identifying demons, they lack horns and they don't have wings either.
Yeah.
And how they fly around is with wisps underneath their waists, like sort of like a genie.
Interesting. So it's very, very similar to the genie in the Aladdin movies. That is like
Yes.
the wisp. Yeah. Because whenever I searched Ifrit, that image would also pop up a lot too. So, because it's like said to be the most powerful of the jinn kind. What fascinates me is when you the setting of your story. Do you kind of set it in the cosmos or in the separate from humanity, or does it involve human characters, or is Earth ever involved? Like, what's the setting of your story?
Earth is involved, but it takes place in a multiverse where in each universe there's a different god, pantheon of gods in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and the first part of the story largely takes place in space because that's where the main character's family's house is. They also travel to live among Marids. That's another tribe of jinn, water spirits. And then near the end of the book and in the sequel, they spend most of their time on the version of Earth where the Canaanite gods rule.
Mm. So, like in the sequel, when you say sequel, is it like a future book that you write, or is this the sequel to the book itself that you've already authored?
I'm writing it right now, actually.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So we're looking forward to a sequel as well to the book.
Yeah, I plan to make it into a trilogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually got a question for you. This is a multi-part question. There have been people that claim that blasphemous statements are made by people who are paid off by Israel. So, how much did you get for your check for writing this book?
I wish I had been paid by Israel. I'm waiting for my check any day now.
See, he's even waiting for his check too, because I know mine got delayed by winter and COVID. I don't know what the excuse is. I think he's in Canada.
Hey! You
so I'm
you
guessing
got to
COVID.
show more respect, man. COVID destroyed the supply chain.
I don't see why Israel would pay me when they're Jewish and I'm atheist, though.
Yeah, that's they pay you in shekels too, like shekels.
Yeah, so you did mention that you became an atheist, right?
Yes.
How has the response been to that when you took this satanic path, as they would say?
I haven't really had any negative responses to it, really. I guess I'm privileged in that way. Like, even among my family, they never really forced their religion down anyone's throats. They were quite progressive about it. I, of course, took issues with how the Iranian government runs things.
Mm.
And even back when I was Muslim, I thought applying centuries-old rules to the modern day is really stupid. But it was what had changed my mind in the end was the angels, the lore about the angels.
Yeah, it's very interesting that was what changed your mind too, and that also inspired you to write the book as well.
Yes.
What I wanted to there is a myth. I don't know if it's true. I heard this in Iran. I've traveled to Iran in Mashhad, the Imam Raza's grave.
Yeah.
And apparently there is a myth that I heard this. I don't know how true it is that there are angels that are doing tawaf of the shrine of Imam Raza in human form. Is that a myth that floats around in Mashhad and Iran?
I haven't heard that one specifically, but I could imagine it being said.
Wow, yeah. So I think it must have been made up by non-Iranians, because I've that was an interesting myth that I found. There was another what do you call it? The like the yeah, it was I think there was the angels also, like they're invisible as well. Like there was another one where they're invisible and they're in the sky and they're also doing the tawaf of the shrine as well. So have you I'm guessing you've heard something like that in Iran?
Yeah, particularly with Imamzadas.
Yeah.
And Iran seems to come up with a new one once in a while.
And what direction do you, given the situation of Iran both religiously and politically. What direction do you tend to see Iran going forward for the time being?
Uh, I don't really know, but I do know that what I do know is that I can't go back there myself unless the current government collapses.
Yeah.
Because I'd have to serve 2 years of military service, which I'm just not cut out for. I hope there would be a peaceful revolution of sorts, but I know that's very high. That's overly optimistic.
Yeah. And what do you tend to see overall with religious ideologies in general? Like, what direction do you see? What do you call it? Islam or Muslims going forward? Like, do you see a change or a shift in the Muslim community and the Islamic world in general?
I've heard that the Saudi Arabian royal family has been funding Wahhabism around the world, and that would explain how a lot of Muslims have been drawn towards extremism.
Yeah, I've heard Salafism being the Salafism being the what do you call it? The ideology that's pushed the most. Not necessarily only in Saudi Arabia, but like also in many places. But I also feel it gets scapegoated a lot because there are the Deobandi ideologies and other extreme ideologies within Sunni and Shia Islam that are just as harmful, I find. With regards to as with the Shia Islam, that is, do you do you have any particular observations, or did you find something problematic specifically with Shia Islam, that is?
I remember one hadith by, I think, one of the imams. I can't remember which one. He said specifically something along the lines of, if you look at your parents with any hatred, all your prayers become null and void. And that when I first heard that, that was when I started questioning Islam.
Yeah.
Because I realized that I disliked my own parents at the time, and I realized that if this is true, then all of my hard work has gone to waste.
Not only that, what if there are abusive parents too, right?
Yeah, I consider
you kind
that
of
as well.
look into emotionally abusive, neglectful, physically abusive parents too. So why should you look at them with love? Like, that's not, what do you call it? So that's not exactly fair. And there's no it's kind of like this set hierarchy. I found that it perpetrates abuse as well. Like, it kind of creates a vicious cycle of narcissism, emotional abuse, and even to an extent physical abuse. I'm guessing in Islam it's also allowed to beat your child at the age of 7 as well if they don't pray.
Wow.
Yeah, I read a hadith somewhere. I don't know if it's authentic or not. But yeah, there's some teachings like that.
So I actually got a question for you, Pouya.
Yeah.
So you have a British accent. You like biology. I can see the periodic table in the background. You're also an atheist and a critic of Islam. Would you consider yourself a young Richard Dawkins without a stroke?
No, I don't think Richard Dawkins is that great of a person. Sure, he did publish a book or two on atheism, but he's a bit of an edgelord, and though I don't know that much about him, to be fair.
I get, I think, have you ever gotten you follow Richard Dawkins or you follow this person, And my response was, I don't know much about him. I don't care much about him. I
Yeah,
actually read the mythology, and that's what convinced me to leave the religion, not Dawkins. No, I don't even bother with him
same.
uh, as much. So, it's pretty what do you call it? It's pretty bizarre. Like they're trying the attempt to like try to equate Dawkins to a prophet when we don't even see him as such.
Yeah, it's like I feel like they're thinking of atheism as another religion when it's not.
Yeah,
Like you have to be convinced by someone else to convert to atheism, as if it's the same thing with
yeah.
Islam.
And there's even the equating you to a communist too, and it's like we're not communists or socialists by any means. So
Yeah.
there's
No, you're mistaken. There's actually a shahada for atheism. Let me recite it for you. I believe Stephen Hawkins was the one and only astrophysicist,
oh my goodness, oh my goodness.
and
Oh, you're
Isaac
gonna
Newton is the one true God.
well listen. Are you gonna put Stalin in there for some reason?
And I bow down to Stalin. No, if you actually like, this is actually hilarious. If you go down to India and look at some of the communists there, do you know how they have like the prayers where they'll put like a small plate with flowers, the rice, and then like the plate, the small fire arati, it's
Right.
called,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they used to pray God. They'll actually do that to frickin' Lenin and Stalin. They'll have frames and pictures of Stalin and Lenin there, and they'll be praying it. They'll bless you, being like, Stalin's blessing you right now. And like, you'd
Why?
be executed if Stalin found out.
Why? Oh, that's so bizarre. That is extremely bizarre. Oh man. But yeah, Nick, do you have you seem to have read the book as well. Do you have any specific questions from the book? Spoiler free though. I do want to read the book.
Yeah,
I
that's
have
kind of
not
a
read the book.
yeah, that's kind of a difficult thing to do. Like, try
Yeah,
not to
yeah,
spoil it
yeah,
as
yeah.
well.
That's true. That's true. Do
But
you,
yeah. So in
Nick?
terms of like the question for me as well, as an author who is essentially writing on such a delicate topic, right? We see what happens when people write comedy or fiction regarding this topic. You get huge amounts of threats. What do you think is the line for art to be carried, and what is considered blasphemy in it, and what's not considered blasphemy? Because there's many people that would consider what you did blasphemy on the religious side and might come after you, right?
Okay.
So, where how far do you think you should go in terms of as an artist for such kind of
I
pieces?
suppose it'd be the same with free speech as with art. So long as there are certain restrictions on free speech that are necessary, so you can't go around harassing people, you can't call for violence. Uh, so I think it's the same with art.
Yeah, and I also it's a request that it's not so much a question, but it's a request. If so happens, like a lot of us in the audience and myself, we end up reading your book, that is. And would you be willing to do a Q&A on the content of the book itself too? Would you
Sure.
be willing? Yeah, in a future episode?
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, no, Nick, we're doing in a future episode, we're doing a Q&A, but remind us to read the book. So I would love to.
I've already read the book, so
Uh,
you're the one that has to do the Q, like the reading,
yeah,
and the
yeah, I have
audience
to
does
do
as
the
well.
reading. I have to do the reading, and I can ask you like book specific questions. So I would
Yeah,
love to do that. Yes, and then the book is linked into the chat
chat.
as well, so you guys can check it out.
I see some
And
comments. Should I reply to them?
If
for
you
sure,
can,
yeah,
does any of the audience want to come on and ask our guest a few questions, or do you want to
yeah.
post
I'll
a
put the
question?
link as well for the
Yeah,
invite, so they can jump in as guests. They can ask their question,
yeah, yeah.
and we'll restrict it to like 10, 15 minutes per
Yes,
person maximum.
we
Okay.
want to get as many people as possible. Um, Yeah, it's the but yeah, for the time being, what we can
Do is Pouya, if you want to respond to any comments that you see.
yeah. So it's yeah, I'm thinking of something to ask.
Someone's asked, how is Dawkins an edgelord? The reason I think of that is because he seems to take atheism too seriously, almost like it is a religion to him.
And Pio says now we have to read his book. Well, 12 more sales. No, please do not react to the comments in the chat. It is a different world.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, Pio is quite a frequent guest, and he also he has a Jewish background as well, so he's yeah, quite interesting to speak to. Thinking clearly as well, and yeah, we have some interesting people in the chat. Um, what I wanted to what do you call it? Ask is do you you grew up as a Shia Muslim? What is your opinion on the? They're technically 12, but like, what is your opinion on the imams, generally speaking?
I remember hearing about how Muhammad is supposed to be the last prophet, right?
Yeah,
Because the Quran and God's message finished with him. But then Shias will also say that imams needed to be needed to exist to carry on his message and finish his work
yeah,
because his work wasn't finished. But then that's contradictory.
yeah. That is quite contradictory. Like, why would you need 12 other people to finish the message, like, or spread the message? Um, when wasn't it supposed to be finished then? So there was that. And do you what's your opinion on the Mahdi? That is the Mahdi myth or belief. That is.
Mahdi, oh, I remember believing that was true at some point as well.
Yeah.
Uh, I think it's copied from the Jesus myth
Yeah.
or the Messiah myth of a future Messiah coming to save humanity.
Yeah. Because Mahdi just means savior, like literally translated to savior. But I believe that's P.O. on here.
Yeah.
P.O.
Yes.
Welcome.
So I was the one who told don't answer the chat because in the chat there are people commenting stuff and sometimes they are sarcastic. It might you don't even have anything with the topic, right? Some don't care about. Never read the chat while you are on a stream, right? So don't care about that.
Okay.
This is like the first one. And of course I had to like read your book first and I make of course a sarcastic comment, now we have to buy the stuff, right? This was a joke. Don't look at it like I was saying you something wrong, but in fact it's true, right? And be happy here because it has like 2000 subscribers and now I'm willing to read it too. So if I can get, of course, a free copy, I will do it. But maybe I will, I will buy it too.
If you buy a
right?
Kindle, you get it for $0. I think.
Oh, I
or that's
hate
how it's done.
Kindle, right? I don't
Yeah,
support Kindle too, right? So I have to
it's
find a ways, right?
it's free with Kindle Unlimited, but I also actually uploaded it for free to Library Genesis. So
Okay,
you
so
can
I'll
read it
go
that way.
there.
You
I'll
can read
go
it that
there.
way.
Um,
I'd ask that if you do read it, please leave me a review as well on
Okay.
Goodreads or Amazon.
Yeah, I'll promise to do that if I will read it, right? And
Yes.
okay, it sounds like you left and you wrote a book, and it sounds like maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, like you were afraid because of the thing you've read, that you kind of afraid, maybe the wrong word. But this is how it comes over. So am I right that because of the stuff you read, you're expecting some kind of bad things happen to you because you
Yes,
sort stuff?
yes. Actually, when I first started doubting my beliefs, I was afraid, and a while ago, I was rather, even when I was an atheist and I was writing my book, I was paranoid that somehow the Iranian government would get me because because at the time I was planning to make it explicitly anti-religious, but it didn't end up being that way. I called it with my friend, I called it the anti-Bible trilogy, but it didn't end up being like that.
I mean, I found your like you said, you were afraid, and same thing happened to me because of different reason, right? Not because I was afraid, my wife was afraid of that, right? Because I'm making content against the belief. But you are brave for doing that, I would say it. And of course, your worries, they are legit. So if I know there will be spoilers if I ask you that, what's about the new book? So let me ask you other stuff, and I will not play the moderator, but because I want to change the topic. So what are your plans for the future? Like, and after, oh no, what do you think to achieve with your book?
Well, I'm just happy if anyone reads it at all, really.
Yeah, but there'll be a purpose. I mean, this is another thing. Like, oh, I will be happy if somebody was noted. No, so if you write something just for other people, that's for me not a real reason. But you did it, so I just assume that you did it for a particular reason because you have doubts or whatever. So
Yeah, I also
I'm
wanted
asking you
to,
for your reasons, right?
in writing the book, I also wanted to explore various mythologies because I like doing that. I incorporated some of what I knew from science as the sci-fi elements in the book. If my book becomes popular, I'm hoping it will help convince people that the mythological aspects of religion are kind of bullshit.
Wouldn't be the first goal to convince them that it is in fact a mythology before the rest?
Yes,
The second
yes,
step is what you're saying is the second step, like this is bullshit, right? But if you achieve that they will look at it, oh, this is a mythology, because there are different religions where Muslims or Christians or Jews are looking at it and say, yeah, those guys having a mythology, right? It's not true. And the second step will be realizing, oh, our belief is mythology too. So,
yes.
okay. Am I talking too much? Please stop me.
Pio, what's your question?
No, I haven't. I'm just having conversation, right?
Yeah.
So he's answering my question. So don't ask me what my question is because he's answering my question, right? And I was
Pio, Thinking Clearly has a question for you.
bets on how long it will take for the Jewish God to come. Yeah. Oh no, he's the Jew, right? No, I'm not the real Jew. I'm the secular Jew, and I just know we invented the bullshit, which all this other bullshit is based upon, right? And I'm, of course, because I'm really biased, I'm seeing the Jewish religion not as I'm seeing it as a mythology or a school of thoughts. I'm biased, right? I'm trying to convince myself, oh, they were always atheists, right? Because I'm atheist.
Yeah.
But I have evidence for it, right? And this is how Judaism works. So yeah, thinking clearly. Yeah, thank you for reminding me to making a point. of my Jewish God, but I'm not doing it. It's not the point I'm making here. So shut up. Right. And I will shut up myself too right
Yeah,
now
well,
and give
we
somebody.
already discussed L in the beginning as well too. So I
Right,
think
right.
we
And
already
here,
brought up your Jewish God technically.
right. And your guest already said it's based on Gold L, and I fully agreeing to it. Yeah, God El was in the other mythology, and some Jews or some Canaanites decided at one point, oh, we all now worship Yahweh is the main God. But he wasn't even the main God, right? He was just a son of El. So yeah, and they declared him as the creator of God. And this is how all the misery went down.
Yeah,
Oh,
no, this is the same pile of bullshit that Ptolemy played to Egypt, and he was like, "Hey, y'all, Alexander's my half brother, and he's also the son of Ra."
Hey, if you talk to a Kemet, Ra is not a god. It's just a manifestation of God. Don't conflate this both stuff. Yeah,
uh,
I should leave now.
yeah,
But thank you very much for answering my
no,
question. You're a nice
you're
guy,
welcome.
and
No problem.
I will for you try to read your book, and of course I will try it for free.
All right, see
Okay,
you, Pio.
have fun.
You're from here, but yeah, thank you so much. But yeah, what other mythologies did you include in this book or research?
I also did Hindu mythology, though that only shows up in the end with one character. I also plan to, in the third book, or maybe in the end of the second book, I'm not sure yet, to include Norse, Greek, Navajo, and Yoruba mythology.
I wanted
It
to
would
ask
it would kind
specifically.
of be cool to have like Indra, Odin, and Zeus all do that like pointing Spider-Man me at one point in the book.
That would be amazing. And also, I wanted to ask Purya, do you have Baal, the god Baal, as a character in your book?
Yes, actually, Baal
Oh,
Hadad.
really? So, and Baal is like, what kind of role does Baal have?
He's the equivalent. He's the Canaanite equivalent of Zeus, as I read him.
Yeah.
Um, I sort of take some of the gods' flaws to the extreme. So like, he's a drunkard in my story. I also his sister Anat. Uh, she's the one who kills Mot.
Wow.
Uh, she's described as a virgin goddess, yet her relationship with Hadad is also incestuous.
Wow. So
So it's confusing.
yeah, it's quite scandalous,
Yes.
to say the least. There was I think a battle between Yahweh and the sea as well, was as a serpent or
Yeah.
the
Leviathan.
Leviathan. Is the Leviathan in your book as well?
Yes.
Oh,
Hey, Mustafa, the Leviathan is a ride at Wonderland, alright? Do not defame that.
So is
yeah.
Behemoth.
So is the behemoth. So the behemoth's also in your book too,
Yes.
and even that is a ride in Canada's Wonderland. So behemoth and a Leviathan are characters in your book. So this should be very, very fascinating.
So is Ziz their sister.
Wow. That's quite that's quite the incident. What about Hasatan or Satan or Satan? That is
Satan, he is in the book, but you probably won't know who it is until he actually becomes Satan in one of the future installments.
right. It like he's in his early stages. That is like the
Yeah. He's still an
right.
angel at this point.
Yeah. I think was it Malach Hamasit? Was he Malach Hamasit or Masit, or which angel was he? Uh,
I went off the Islamic old name, but I'm not gonna say what that
oh,
is
okay,
for because
okay. So you went
spoilers.
to the Iblis, you went the Iblis direction. Okay.
You don't want to
Yes.
make it a spoiler here, Moose.
I know. It's just like when you know the mythology, it's kind of half the spoilers kind of there with the Islamic Judeo-Christian mythology. Um, But yeah, Nick, do you have any other questions, or does the audience have any other questions?
Yeah, so I was also wondering, in a sense, what, in terms of like being in Canada or coming to Canada and writing your book and such, how much do you think you would have been able to do this if you were in either England or in Wales or in Iran? Or how has the resources here for coming to Canada helped you on the journey that you did for both the book and the religious side?
Well, I self-published the book and through Amazon, so I don't think I'd have been able to do that if I were still in Iran. Maybe I could have. I'm not sure. The internet there is really shit. Uh, if I were in UK, yeah, I could still do it.
I can verify. I've been there. The internet there is pretty shoddy, to say the
Yeah.
least.
Pio
Uh,
actually has another question for you.
oh, I forgot to ask as a guest if you ever read the book of Jay Smith's book, The History of God.
No, I haven't read that.
But yeah, I think I don't have a lot of questions left. Does the audience or Nick, do you guys have any other questions remaining?
Yeah, if anyone wants to jump on, thinking clearly, if you want to jump on and ask any more questions. So, if
Oh,
that's
actually, if you're talking about the early history of God, Yahweh, and the other deities in ancient Israel, I think I have that book saved and I might have read some of it.
Okay.
all right. So, for the audience, what should one takeaway for this book be?
Oh, you're asking me? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
What do you mean by takeaway?
So, with what kind of mindset should an audience come in to view or read this kind of book? Should they
Okay.
have some preconceived notions about the mythology, or should they be able to like come in with a completely clear mind and get the characters established from the beginning, or what kind of mindset should they come in with?
Yeah, clear mind sounds good. Particularly don't like get rid of any notions of what's normal, because this isn't a story about humans, it's about immortals, right? And so like my characters often get severely injured, but they survive it. And I remember reading, and this would be surprising to people who are just new to my story.
All right. So I
For
think that's the
sure.
main takeaway from the book itself. So I think Nick, I think we are there. I don't see any other questions.
Yeah. So in that case, I was also like, I have a video here. Let me just get that uh, up. But it's our. Oh, someone jumped in.
Oh, did they?
Pio, you gotta get your mic working.
Pio again?
Yep.
Oh my goodness. How many beers has he had this time?
All right. Yeah, Pio, you gotta fix your mic and jump in.
While he does that, can I talk about something?
Sure,
For sure. Yeah.
absolutely.
There's this one book I got from Qom in Iran. It was written in a way that's sort of like, it imagines an interview with each of the archangels in Islamic lore. And I remember going through that, and each of the, except for Gabriel, they all seem normal, like what you'd expect from one of the holiest angels. Gabriel was like the most passionate about his faith, to the point where it was described that he beat someone's face against a tree until he was unrecognizable, all because he insulted Muhammad.
Oh boy.
And there's also a bit about him in Sodom and Gomorrah using what sounded like heat vision on the sodomites.
Jeez. Gabriel
I-
seems nuts.
Yeah.
Yes, P.O.
Yes, I'm back again because I have, in fact, I have two more questions. The book you wrote, is it a story or is it like a factual stuff where you try to explain sources, or is it just, when I say just, is the wrong word, or is it a story?
It's
You know
a
what I
story,
mean?
yeah.
Okay, so because my second question will be, if you explain stuff, if there are sources in it, like where you take it from. But now it is like, it's like you wrote a book similar to Satanic Verses,
Yeah.
and now you're afraid to be on the blacklist. Okay, now you answered my question. I don't know about. I just wanted to ask how your book is like created. Is it like a source? So like the book I was talking, and you said you read part of it from J. Smith, the Catholic guy, the history of Yahweh God and stuff. You said you did it, right? Because half of his story is like sources, like half of his book. But when you say it's a story, and on the other side, when you say it like that, I don't know why you should be afraid of
Well,
some repercussions.
Pouya and Pio, the thing is, the Quran is also fiction, yet people take it seriously, right? So
Yeah, of course. But they no, yeah. But they will tell you it's not a fiction, and then we are
wait,
here
you're
to
telling me there's
disprove
actually
it.
people out there that believe that a dude flew to
Yes.
to this?
I want to diverse the topic, but you know the interview between Dawes Talking and the other guy on London University, whatever, and Dawes Talking
Oxford.
is asking him, "Do you really believe that Mohammed was flying on a wing horse to Mecca?" And he just, "Yes, I do believe."
Yeah, was that
100%.
Mehdi Hassan? Mehdi Hassan was the one who
Yeah.
said
So,
yes, right?
so don't ask me. It's true. People believe it 100%, right?
Yeah.
And the funny stuff is, I know I will leave. Please, believe me, I will leave in 2 minutes. If you talk to Muslims and you ask them, is it really true that there is no mistake in the Quran? Yes. Will be the consequences that if you find out one mistake, would you leave Islam? The answer is not always no, right? And this is the funny stuff, right? And whether they are consequent or they are not. Yeah. And if they say yes, you can show them like 1,000 mistakes in the Quran. I'm finished. I'll go again. I'm sorry.
All right.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
P.O.
Bye.
Right. Yeah, and like I think the view, like the video reactions are also doing well. So I actually had a special video for you, considering you got two scientists here now. But yeah,
Again, after this period, didn't
yeah. So
Wait.
our best friend Neil deGrasse Tyson,
Oh my goodness.
Neil Smoking deGrasse Tyson.
Oh my goodness.
Uh, yeah. Our favorite scientist and educator, Mohammed Hijab, is reacting to him.
Oh no. All right, let's do this. Let's do this.
Islam rose again after this period, didn't have science associated with it. No new inventions in math. You look at the period of Islam in Spain, the period where the great Alhambra was built. There is no attendant science going on there. It's done. It's gone.
This is now going to be in the public sphere.
What the fuck is that music?
I know, right? What's up with that extreme music and the hair?
From
What
Star
is up
Wars.
with the hair?
And why is it like shaking?
For people to ridicule you and to remind you of your incompetence.
How?
You're incompetent.
Every time they see your face, they'll be reminded of your academic incompetence on these fields.
The fuck?
Muhammad hijab. So
Look at the
silly.
lion in the background.
What is the lion in the back? Because people call him the lion, and he calls himself the lion. And like, a lion of what exactly? And this guy.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you guys doing? So I came across
I'm doing pretty shitty now that I watch you.
a clip by a new atheist academic called Neil deGrasse. Now, this individual is put forward in a lot of the kind of debates and public discussions, and he gets millions of views, and he represents the kind of new atheism from as much as I can understand from his polemics. And really, when I watched this clip,
So what's the difference between old atheism and new atheism?
Yeah, and it's like it's one of those things where it's like, wait, atheism is just a lack of belief. Like, what is he going? Where is he going with this?
thought to myself, should I dignify these comments with a response? And at the end of it, I said I have to, because this is such a ridiculous showing of academic incompetence that I thought it must be answered. So let's take a look at this clip and dissect it piece by piece.
At this point, Islam is maybe just a few hundred years old.
So the first thing he says Islam is just a few hundred years old. Now, I don't know how he defines few, but at the time of Al-Ghazali, Islam is around 500 years, which is...
500? Actually, let's do the calculation. 622 to 1088. That's 466, specifically. So, he's... he's almost correct, but it's still a few hundred, so it's not that long. So I don't know he's kind of being, I think he's just nitpicking at this point.
Yeah, already.
Yeah, so this is a nitpick. 466. I could nitpick Muhammad hijab and say, no, it's 466. So it's kind of a huge nitpick. Carry on.
half a millennium. So this is already showing you as precursors to the bigger errors that are going to come.
People are reading the Quran and interpreting it however
Oh wait,
they
hang
sort of
on.
want to and feel.
1058. So it's 436. So, and it's not even at the 500-year mark. So Muhammad, I can even further, but even at the end when he dies, it's not even at the 500-year mark. So hijab, I can nitpick hijab like that too. It's not even, that's 11 years short. Sorry, hijab.
There's not a coherence to the practice of Islam until he comes around.
He says something here which I don't understand what he means by, because he says before Ghazali there was no coherence to the practice of Islam.
So what do you say to that, Muslim Pouya?
So yeah, exactly. It's I carry on.
Now, I don't understand what he means by this, because from a jurisprudential perspective, the four A'imma, or the four Imams, major Imams of Sunni Islam, and by the way, also the major branch of Shia Islam, were all established. I mean, you had, the four madhahib. You had Usul Fiqh being established by the book of Ash-Shafi'i, who wrote Ar-Risala, one of the most early commentaries or explications of Usul Fiqh, or the principles of
What's an explication? I thought it was an explanation.
No, but he is correct on the fiqh, that it was already established within the 100 years, 200 years. But still, so he's right on that. So he's right on the money there. So I'm thinking he's from a jurisprudence perspective. So hijab isn't necessarily wrong here. That, from a jurisprudence perspective, he's correct. Now, I know how he reluctantly says, oh, even the Shia one was established. I'm like, yeah, the Shia one was established before the Sunni schools. He's not going to admit that. That he's not going to admit. So, this one's quite fascinating. But let's see where he goes.
Jurisprudence, you had the codification of all of the major hadith books, including Bukhari and Muslim and so on.
Wait.
So I don't really understand what he means, but...
So, technically, yes, you did have the hadith books codified, but that was after the fiqh was established as well, too. So this was in the 800s. You had Bukhari, Muslim, Sunnah Abu Dawood, and Tirmidhi, as well as there was another one that I forget. Crap. So Abu Dawood. I keep forgetting, like Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Sunan Abu Dawood. So yeah. So yeah, I think he's correct on that. So he's very correct. So let's carry on. Hijab is being correct. I'm surprised.
By the fact that there was no coherence to the practice of Islam, especially because Al-Ghazali himself was positioned or was from the school of thought of the Shafi'is, and he was from the school of thought from Aqidah perspective of the Ash'aris. So he was part of the discourse, but he was not in any way, making his own school of thought. I mean, there were practices that were already codified from a jurisprudential, creedal, and hadith perspective. So I didn't understand really what he meant by this, but let's go on and see what he says next.
People are reading the Quran and interpreting it however they sort of want to and feel like it. There's not a coherence to the practice of Islam until he comes around.
Now, he says that Muslims were interpreting the Quran in whatever way they wanted to. But this is false, because there were principles of istinbat, as is mentioned in the Quran. لَعَلِمَهُ الَّذِينَ يَسْتَنبِطُونَهُ مِنْهُم, as the Quran says, that those who are able to do extrapolation would be able to do so. And this extrapolation is a method, right? So it's called, tafsir method, or the exegetical method. This was already laid down well before, Al-Ghazali, Al-Tabari had his...
Hang on. So he says that, but he's kind of contradict, because there were still varying degrees of interpreting the Quran too. Like even the tafsirs don't necessarily agree with each other. So he's kind of like mixing facts here, because even though the earliest tafsir, and we don't have manuscripts of them, but many of them disagree with each other, even pretty early. What they don't necessarily disagree with each other is the mythology of it. So it's difficult to say. It's and there were different interpretations of the Quran too, and the what do you call it? There were different interpretations for, let's just say, Surah 4, verse 24. Sunni schools of thought see it as sex lice, but Shia schools saw it as the muta verse. So right-hand possession for Shia Muslims is very different for Sunni Muslims. So there was already the confusion, and even so, even just after Muhammad's death, there were varying Qurans as well. So there was a variety of Qurans according to Bukhari. So, and many of them were burnt down, and only the Uthmanic Codex survived. Even then, there was they added more things, and things were added. So Muhammad Hijab is kind of like excluding a lot of facts here. So he's kind of assuming that everybody interpreted it the same, but not necessarily the case. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, you can't expect him to be right all the time, right?
Yeah. So he's right, but not exactly right. It's like some you kind of have to what do you call it? Kind of, when you look into the history, there were still disagreements. There were still a lot of extinct groups within extinct sects within Islam too. Especially Shia Islam had a lot of extinct sects because they had different beliefs, and there were some very heretical beliefs that existed. So there was no unifying Islam even at that time. So Grassi's kind of right. There's even hijab is kind of right. So it's kind of like this weird, I'm kind of seeing it as, you guys are both wrongish. So rightish, wrongish. So it's can't say much. But yeah, let's continue. By the way, our guest, do you have any comments on this?
No, I don't know much about the history of Islam after other than the Imams.
Yes, and then the Imams as well, that they're kind of ignored too, and then they have their own tafsirs as well. So there was disagreement within the Islamic community. You had the Shia, and then different Sunni schools of thought, and then you had Umayyad Islam that kind of vanished, and then that's what that's what it was. So, but yes, let's continue, Nick.
magnum opus or his compendious or voluminous or encyclopedic tafsir, and this was well known, and many other tafsir or exegetical works were made thereafter. So this idea that people were haphazardly, interpreting the Quran in the way that they wanted to is far from the theological truth, and this shows that this man is weak academically in his presentation.
Actually, hang on. He says that, people, again, I'm gonna kind of, there were tafsirs and there were hadiths, and many did contradict each other. So, and this was a haphazard situation. So Muhammad Hijab is making this assumption that, it wasn't as haphazard. No, it was pretty haphazard. And then people had the concept of qiyas, or, personal rationale or personal interpretation too. So there was still that, confusion, because the Quran was not very clear as a text. But let's continue.
Behavior of a good Muslim. In much the same way St. Augustine, in his book Cities of God, codified what it is to be a good Christian.
And he says that Augustine codified what it is to be a good Christian, as if he was, in the 5th century as he came along, he was the one who did so, and there was not a patristic backdrop to his existence. I mean, many of the church fathers predated Augustine by hundreds of years. I mean, you have Justin Martyr, you have Origen of Alexandria, you have all of these big names, and you have the so-called ecumenical councils that, Chalcedon and Nicaea and all of these things. I mean,
yeah, he is. Hijab is also correct in this, and I'm surprised he's kind of defending Christianity as well. So I'm very surprised. Like, hijab is being academic.
He's committing shirk.
Yeah, he's committing shirk and defending Christianity. Oh. But yeah, he is correct that, there were, already works of, from Paul to all the way to, the different church fathers that existed long before Augustine as well. So at least from I don't know much about Christian history, but at least hijab, I kind of find it's correct, because there was already sort of like an established doctrine. So people were already, there. So I kind of agree with hijab here. Let's continue.
Was there not a Christian community before Augustine came along?
Oh, yeah,
this shows you that his patristic understanding, or understanding of patristic scholarship, is as weak, or even probably weaker than his historical knowledge and or theological knowledge as it relates to Islam. So let's go on.
The assertion that the manipulation of numbers is the work of the devil.
All right, so here he makes his big claim. He says that Al-Ghazali mentions that it's the manipulation of numbers are the work of the devil.
Wait, what numbers are you talking about? Where's the numbers? I don't see it.
Assuming or presupposing that Al-Ghazali, of all people he could have chosen, and this is ridiculous, because Al-Ghazali, for anyone who knows just a little bit of either the philosophy of religion or intellectual history, they would know who Al-Ghazali is.
Do you know who he is?
No, I don't even give him as much importance. I do know him, but it's just I don't give him that much importance, to be honest. So,
same.
So it's like Al-Ghazali is kind of weirdly insignificant, if anything. Even to Shia Muslims, is very insignificant. Like, we have, what do you call it? I think there's the Imams, and then there's the Sahaba, and then there's the writers of Bukhari and Muslim. Like, we kind of give those guys, and the tafsirs, the different tafsir writers. So we give them more importance than Ghazali. Like, Ghazali is just one guy out of so many, and then there's just so many different writers in the Islamic world. So I don't know. I just don't care about Ghazali.
On this pause, the video here looks amazing.
But yeah, let's keep going.
All the people in the Islamic world you decided to choose, you chose Al-Ghazali to say that he was against science and mathematics. And what's worse is that the quote that he mentioned is nowhere to be found in his compendious works. The closest thing I found was something in his Ihya Ulum ad-Din, which is a huge book, made many volumes.
Moose, you're going to have to take a control the pause thing. There's some white van parked outside my house.
Oh, is there? All right. So I think wait, can I? Am I able to pause this?
Yeah, you can pause it.
All right. So am I playing it? Hang on. Let me just see the.
Are you on your laptop or cell phone?
It's a laptop. So should I press just enter?
So on the screen, you should be able to click the play.
No, I can't click anything. I'm
Oh,
not able
all right,
to.
then I'll be here.
Voluminous.
Yeah.
And in his Kitab al-Ilm, he mentions that people who go far in excesses when it comes to not just mathematics, but in other fields, in kalam and otherwise, that they would be damaging themselves. But he actually mentions in the same book, by the way, this book is translated into English. And you can pick up an English translation by Kenneth Honekamp, and you'll find in page 38 that Al-Ghazali says the opposite of what you're saying that he said. Al-Ghazali mentions that it's fard kifaya, that it's a communal obligation for people to learn the praised sciences, as he calls them, of medicine and of mathematics. You see, this is the distortion that the new atheists have to resort to in order to try and attack religious narratives.
Hang on.
Absolute distortion.
Who's he yelling
Why
at?
is he lumping all of us in the same category? Like,
Hey, Pouya, how does it feel to be lumped in the same category as Neil deGrasse Tyson?
It sounds like atheismophobia.
yeah, it is homophobia. It's like, oh, Neil deGrasse Tyson is not someone I would follow.
Oh
But yeah,
shit!
it's one
Not
of
just
those-
mathematics, but in other fields, in kalam and otherwise, that they would be damaging themselves. But he actually mentions in the same book, by the way, this book is translated into English. And you can pick up an English translation by Kenneth Honekamp, and you'll find in page 38 that Al-Ghazali says the opposite of what you're saying that he said. Al-Ghazali mentions that it's fard kifaya, that it's a communal obligation for people to learn the praised sciences, as he calls them, of
Isn't that shirk though?
I don't know. I think so. But yeah, let's keep going. I kinda
medicine and of mathematics. You see, this is the distortion that the new atheists have to resort to in order to try and attack religious narratives. Absolute distortions, and they should be ashamed of themselves that they're coming forward and speaking in this way without the academic competence.
I know the next statement. Your child's gonna be an apostate.
yeah.
Academic competence of checking their work. I mean, if this was done in another context with other fields, they would be all over us and attacking us. But this is historical information which has been distorted. And how dare you mention Al-Ghazali of all the scholars you could have mentioned?
This is the
An
second
individual
time
who had a method which was systematic. And if you really look at René Descartes, who was the father of rationalism in the West, and his book, The Meditations, where he went through systematic doubt in order to come to cogito ergo sum, which is I think therefore I am, you'll realize that in Al-Munqidh min al-Dalal and the books of Tahafut al-Falasifa and all of those books, that the same method of systematic doubt, well before René Descartes
Doubt? What doubt?
came along with it, was exhibited and presented by the works of Al-Ghazali, where he done exactly the same thing, a systematic doubt, a skeptical approach, and then the Kalam method and the arguments from Kalam, which are all over the academic world now, popularized by the likes of William Lane Craig and others.
He's admitting to the fact that there were atheists during the time of the Islamic Golden Age. And during the Islamic times, he is admitting to that, at least in an indirect way, because there was Al-Razi was a big critic of Islam during that time. He was a famous doctor too, an actual doctor, not like Zakir Naik. So he was one of the biggest critics of Islam, and I think a few other scholars were critics of Islam. So, and then the Kalam method, I think Rayan was explaining the Kalam method as well, like the how they kind of put in necessary existence as well. It's like a weird version of the ontological argument for God, which kind of like poke at it, it just falls apart. But yeah, let's carry on.
Oh, Moose, there's a special comment for you.
Yeah, that's yeah. He says this Arabic terms, and then he just doesn't pick out the source from it, right? So he doesn't pick out the specific source, that is, because he never says chapter this, chapter that. Like the way Zakir Naik, I at least admire Zakir Naik doing the chapter specifically, whereas Muhammad Hijab doesn't do that. But he does like tend to show off his Arabic a bit much. But yeah, let's keep going.
In atheist discussions were taken from Al-Ghazali. Why, if he is somebody who is averse to the logical process, or averse to mathematics, or averse to medicine and science? In his book, Al-Mustasfa, which is one of the most elaborative books on the topic of the principles of jurisprudence, he starts this book with a discussion on epistemology. And he started a tradition of doing that, such that even Hanabila, who are more conservative and reserved, especially when it came to Kalam, the systematic theology, someone like Ibn Qudam.
Hanabila or Hanbali? Is he trying to say Hanbali and then he just trained it to Hanabila? Because like Hanbali is a school of thought as well, who are more traditional, more like conservative as well. But I don't know what he's saying. Like, who the hell is Hanabila? Or he's saying Hanbali. So I don't know. Hijab, say the things properly.
In his book, in his usul book, which was really a copy of a template of Al-Ghazali, he also did the same thing in the first manuscript that you find. So he started a tradition of a discussion about epistemology and about these philosophical matters. How dare you attribute to him, of all people in the Muslim world, that he was averse to and against?
Who's he yelling at?
I know. Like, why is he doing that?
Why is he so worked up? This guy's...
Of all people, you could do that. Like, he's kind of weirdly obsessing over it.
I give him 10 years, he's going to drop with a brain aneurysm because he's going to get so pissed on it.
Yeah, it's like,
science, mathematics, and technology.
He's not wrong. Muhammad Hijab isn't wrong here, but it's just the way he says it. It's like, it's too entertaining.
You should be ashamed of yourself. And this is, you actually...
Oh, that was targeted at you.
Oh, I should be ashamed of myself.
Being an atheist.
All right.
Actually, you should come out and apologize.
Yeah.
You should come out and apologize to the Muslim community and to the academic community, not just the Muslim, to the academic community for distorting the intellectual history of the medieval period in such a way. You should come out and apologize. I want to see an apology on your Twitter or whatever it is you use. Yes, because how dare you come out and lie flagrantly, blatantly, and obviously lie about something which you didn't have the common decency to double check. You make me sick. You make me sick. And this is what the new atheist movement has to resort to. Flagrant and obvious lies in order to distort the public narrative and to try and bring people away from religion.
What is he talking? Like, why is he lumping us into one kind of new atheist? And it's like, he's just, you picks Neil deGrasse. Like, I could say, you picked Neil deGrasse Tyson of all people. You picked Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Neil deGrasse Tyson doesn't even know that much about astrophysics.
Exactly. Right? The man's just insane. So he picked the most insane guy.
You have failed, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
2, actions that you see in nature are the will of Allah. Well, if you drop a stone and it falls, Allah willed that.
He's talking about philosophy, and then he makes a bigger blunder. He says, you see, all the actions are from the will of Allah, and here he's referring to occasionalism. Occasionalism, which is an Ash'ari doctrine. And by the way, Al-Ghazali, if you really read his books, he didn't believe in it in as much the same way as many of his predecessors did, as many of the scholars, even in the West now, have spoken about. He believed in a second order causation. But anyway, this is aside the point. You wouldn't even understand what I'm talking about. What is important here? Because you're a fool, with all due respect, and you're ignorant of these things. So I'm going to speak, and you're not going to understand.
Or you just don't want to explain because you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
But what you should...
Is that what you call a response? Like, no. Because, like, Gerasi is not necessarily wrong, like, Allah willed it. Like, he's not necessarily wrong there either. Like, because there is the will of Allah. Like, he does say, he just says to be, and it just happens, right? So Allah has control over everything according to Islamic mythology. So is Muhammad Hijab suggesting that that's not correct? I don't know where Muhammad Hijab is going with this.
What's really funny and ironic is people that you have had interviews with on this topic of determinism and free will, like Sam Harris, who wrote a book called Free Will, believe in determinism. And so they don't believe. So you're saying here the will of God. So this stops curiosity and stops our kind of motivation or disincentivize us from doing things.
If that's your explanation, your curiosity stops.
But a determinist, even if they're an atheist who believes in atheist academic called Neil.
I just love that. If that's you, I love that expression, Gerasi Tyson. But
and this is what the new atheist movement has. All the actions are from the will of Allah. And here he's referring to, really funny and ironic is, even if they're an atheist who believes in an uninterrupted causal chain, disincentivize us from doing things.
If that's your explanation, your curiosity stops.
But a determinist, even if they're an atheist who believes in an uninterrupted causal chain, will have exactly the same philosophical baggage. So when you are seated in front of your friend, Sam Harris, who wrote a book called Free Will, and he wrote at the bottom of it, Sam Harris, but actually he shouldn't have put his name there because it wasn't Sam Harris with his free will that wrote that book, but it was a set of determined, uninterrupted caused events that wrote that book. You should have inquired about that. About why could it be the case that a deterministic worldview will interrupt someone's incentive to do things, because otherwise everyone's a puppet, everyone's doing things without free will. So if you're arguing that this disincentivizes people from, or
yeah,
that look on your face.
It's like, where is he going? What is his point? Like, I'm trying to actually understand what is his point. Like, he's kind of going all over the place. And the problem I find is that he's using determinism and, he's using Western concepts, to basically just, but what relevance does it have with I'm kind of thinking the Islamic ideology and stuff like this. How are you using the Islamic ideology? So it's just kind of bizarre that how Muhammad Hijab is responding to this. I'm just like weirdly confused because it's like, what is he on? What is his end game?
Or makes them less curious from doing things like science, then this argument can be made on the worldview of determinism. You see, you've shot yourself in the foot because of your lack of knowledge, not just in theology and history, but also in philosophy of religion, and other than that. So you should be ashamed of yourself once again, and you're embarrassing yourself. You are absolutely embarrassing yourself. The more you talk, the more you make blunders.
Why did he shout?
And you're getting caught out. And no longer is the Muslim community or even any religious community, I'm going to sit idly by, watching individuals like you talk rubbish and make mistakes and blunders, and just leave you to do what you want to do.
Wait. When he says Muslim community, when he says Muslim community, is he talking just his cronies as the Muslim community? Or is he talking about other sects within Islam, like the Shia community as well as the others?
Well, no, this is the guy that also says that the semen comes out between the ribs and the sternum. The ribs and the backbone. Muhammad Hijab has a 2-hour video about how he says the man's semen comes from the
backbone, right?
Rib cage and backbones, yeah.
Yeah. Oh no.
He's
Yeah.
like, no, if you put an X-ray underneath the guy's balls and look from there,
Oh
like
no.
he's the kind of guy that
Is he gonna resort to that explanation?
I remember being told that in school as well.
Oh, this is embarrassing. But yeah, and then now he's like, "Are you gonna no? Just go on with your life. Just debunk him. That's it." Like he has to come out, apologize, and then he's just lumping everything together, which doesn't have any relation.
And maybe some of our youth will listen to what you have to say and be convinced. No, we're going to hold you to account, to academic account.
Oh, really?
So
who's gonna hold you?
Who's gonna hold Muhammad Hijab academically accountable? As he's made some blunders as well. Like,
not just on a peer-reviewed journal that only a few elites can look at. No, this is now.
Why is he trashing the peer review system?
he's just like, he's just salty because like he can't get anything done peer reviewed either. So he's just salty.
No, like the peer review, the way it's designed is anyone can do that experiment anywhere.
Yeah.
And peer review means they actually do that experiment somewhere else and get the same results and can verify this article.
But remember, according to Hijab, it's an elitist system.
He considers it elite because he can't get his education enough to be able to peer review in the first place.
Yeah.
Bro, take it in. I was in undergraduate engineering, and I still worked on peer reviewing, right?
Yeah.
I was a research assistant in my undergrad. It's not that hard.
And we're broke undergrads too, so we're not even exactly rich undergrads either.
Yeah, how the bloody fuck am I an elitist?
All right, but according to
You're going to be in the public sphere for people to ridicule you and to remind you of your incompetence. Every time they see your face, they'll be reminded of your academic incompetence on these fields.
Islam rose.
I like how he has to put that in there to avoid lawsuits.
It has to what?
So he has to put that statement out there in these fields in order to avoid the lawsuits.
Again, after this period, didn't have science associated with it.
And look at this claim that he makes. He says, Islam rose again after this period, but it didn't have science. Oh my God. Now you've humiliated yourself. With all due respect to you, that you don't actually deserve.
Islam never had science to begin with. Like, it's a mythology, it's a religion. It has nothing to do with science. And, in this case, both these guys, it's just like, my brain's kind of getting hurt. But, the empire itself is different. Like, the caliphate is different. The religion is very different. So I think they need to, they kind of mix the two together. But in reality, the empires were Muslim empires or the Islamic empires were different than the Islamic religion itself. So he's kind of like, kind of mixing up. They're both mixing up the two. So yeah, I agree with Pio. And never had science. It's a mythology. Even by definition, it's a mythology. So what is he on?
You've humiliated yourself. How have you humiliated yourself? You've humiliated yourself. Completely humiliated yourself. So let me give you a few names. Ibn Nafis. When did he die? Ibn Nafis, one of the greatest figures of the medieval period and in the Arab world, in the Islamic period, 1213. 1213. This is how many years after Al-Ghazali died? Maybe about 200 years. In fact, exactly 202 years. Yes?
100 years.
Or 102 years. So
102 years. Dumbass.
Did he say 202?
Yeah, he says from 200 it goes down to 102 years. Like, and what's the relevance?
Ibn Nafis was not, he was brainwashed by Al-Ghazali. Somehow, the works of...
and Moose.
Yes, it was. Well, no, was it the... No, Aisha, there was a... No, but that was a stoning verse, no? The adultery stoning verse. That was eaten by the sheep or goat.
Al-Ghazali stopped everyone from doing science. Does this even sound rational to you? I mean, your irrationality, your new atheist irrationality is so limited that you can't even understand, oh, one book, is it really going to change the way everyone operates in the entire Islamic period? Ibn Nafis, when did he die? I mean, didn't you even want to dignify yourself by checking these things up? I mean, some of the contemporaries of Al-Ghazali were doing mathematics. Amr Khayyam, he died like a couple of dozen years after. He died some years after Al-Ghazali. I mean, he was a mathematician. Why didn't he stop doing maths? I mean, this is ridiculous. Al-Adrisi. What about Al-Adrisi, the geographer? Wait a minute. What about At-Tusi? At-Tusi, who Copernicus...
What the hell is this guy's like?
So what's the okay? I don't get the. He's saying all these scientists from the Islamic caliphates, but
they're not Islamic.
Yeah, they're not
Persian.
exactly Islamic. They're Muslims. They're Muslims. So he's kind of like conflating Muslims into Islam as like one entity, but no, they're separate entities. And the I would see like what relevance did like the Quran or the Hadith have with this? Like it just and also like Degrassi Tyson's kind of whack himself too. So it's like we're looking at two different whack jobs, like just a whack job reviewing another whack job. So that's what I'm seeing right now, and it's kind of weird. So hijab's not wrong. Like, yeah, there were contemporaries that, but I don't know if Degrassi ever made the claim that, Islam, like the science stopped there. And the history is a little more complicated than that, It's like, because different regions work differently. So history is a little more complicated. So there's no like right or wrong answer. So yeah, but let's continue with this lion.
References. Yes, he references in his book. And obviously Copernicus, is the figurehead of the scientific revolution in the 16th century.
And though al-Battani is the only Islamic astronomer Copernicus actually names, recent detective work has uncovered clues that Copernicus based many of his ideas on the work of other Islamic scholars. The clearest example is Copernicus's use of a mathematical idea devised by the 13th century Islamic astronomer Al-Tusi.
You have never read the works of Copernicus, because if you did, you'd know it's not just Al-Tusi that he references, but he also references Ali Kushji. Now, Ali Kushji was an Ottoman into the 15th or 16th century, well after Al-Ghazali. He was an Ottoman. But he was instrumental. He was absolutely instrumental in influencing the Copernican revolution or the scientific revolution, which is probably...
How true is this?
Like the thing is, he's still like naming these scientists, but did these scientists actually believe in the same ideology as this nut job?
Because you gotta remember, all these guys were like... Yeah, they were under the religion, but they were also from cultures that were... So, they were also from cultures that weren't Islamic originally, right?
Exactly.
From Babylon, from India.
And not only that, they took some earlier works as well, too, like, from Roman and Greek and Egyptian sources as well. So it's not like it's making that assumption that, the Islamic scientists of the Islamic age were the only ones who were innovative. They kind of worked on what passed, and that's how things work. Like you work on previous works, you kind of build up on previous works. So, and then Copernicus never knew of any Islamic people. He was a Polish guy. That's what Pio says. But yeah, it's I don't know where he's going with this. It's just it's weird. But yeah, I know he's naming these people, but like some of them might not have even believed in their own religion either. So that's it's quite the assumption. that he's kind of taking pride in these guys when these guys, had they been alive today, would have kind of roasted hijab, on his belief system. But yeah, let's continue, Nick.
The biggest paradigm shift, to use the term of Thomas Kuhn, that the Western world has ever had in terms of scientific enterprise, only to be compared possibly with the movement from Newtonian to Einsteinian physics. How dare you stand in front of people and teach them false information? How dare you do that?
How dare you teach people on YouTube that semen comes from the backbone?
This man does the same thing. He does the same thing with his ideology. He's doing the same thing in Hyde Park at Speaker's Corner. And then
would you like me to pull up a video of him saying that pedophilia is acceptable in Islam?
Yeah. This man is the one that says pedophilia is acceptable from the Quranic perspective. So, isn't that embarrassing? But at least he's being honest in that regard. So,
at least he's not promoting science. So
yeah. So let's continue with this.
How dare you stand there and say the things that you've said without even having the dignity and the self-respect of checking those things out? And look what he says after that. He says, there's 1.3 billion Muslims. Let's take a look. He says, there's 1.3 billion Muslims, and how many Muslims won the Nobel Prize? And he says, he calls this the best measure.
There is 1.3 billion Muslims in the world today who are not participants on the frontier of scientific discovery. What's the best measure of this? Just check out the Nobel Prizes. I tallied them. Okay? How many Jews have won the Nobel Prize? In the sciences, here they go.
The best measure. Wait a minute. So the argument here is that something inherently in Islam, because of Al-Ghazali. So, in other words,
I know the argument for this. It's just that Allah made all the scientific cures, the medical cures and such, and he's waiting for non-Muslims to unlock it.
Oh, yeah.
Every Muslim
Let's
now
see
is
what he
influenced by
wants.
Al-Ghazali's thought, even the Shi'is or even the Hanabila who are not influenced by him, or other madhahib or other people. Everyone's influenced by Al-Ghazali, and Al-Ghazali has influenced them to drop science and technology and mathematics. And so everyone, because they needed Al-Ghazali to tell them that, everyone dropped science and technology, even though Samarkand, which had one of the biggest and most influential observatories of the Muslim world, was actually established some centuries after Al-Ghazali's death. I'm shocked as a physicist that you don't know about the history of physics. You're an ignorant.
I'm kind of weirdly in agreement with hijab at this one, weirdly enough. But at the same time, also it's like the Nobel Prize winning, it's like, is that a good measure, Nick? Or is that even a good measure from Degrassi's point of view?
Well, yeah, it is, because while other people, even people from that area, Jewish people and such, are making astrophysics claims about the Brownian motion with Einstein and such, Niels Bohr and everyone, the Muslims are studying which wing of the fly cures all diseases, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah, there was that embarrassing thing, and then I think there was a period where the printing press was actually, there was a fatwa against the printing press by Shaykh al-Islam or Ibn Taymiyyah. I don't know when it was. It's also, but it's so what's it up? But yeah, it's weird. At the same time, he's not necessarily wrong. There has been at least the Islamic world politically and sociologically has been a bit in a weird spot, in a dark age so far. He's not wrong there. But at the same time, we did have the that nuclear scientist from Pakistan Abdul. What's that? What's the guy's name? Crap, I forgot. Um, the nuclear scientist. There were some Nobel Prize winners. I'm just gonna search it up quick.
Abdul Qadir Khan.
Abdul Qadir Khan. Yes. Abdul. Whoops. Abdul. It's Abdul Qadir Khan, right? Did he? He won the Nobel Prize, right?
Let me just check.
Did he win the? Because he was quite a famous nuclear scientist, Abdul Qadir Khan, and I think he was born. Yeah, he's Khan, and was he Ahmadi or was he? Yeah, so he was quite the celebrated figure in. Whoops.
But yeah, no, he didn't win anything.
Yeah, no, he didn't win any prizes, but yeah, he was quite renowned. So there are some renowned scientists in the Muslim world. So it's just yeah, but then again, there was a Nobel Peace Prize given to Obama, so it's just a bit odd that they gave him the peace prize, because I don't see any peace in Obama's reign. But yeah, let's continue. I think we're going.
And now you're making the claim that of a 1.3 billion, actually this must be an old statistic because there's way more than 1.3 billion according to Pew. Another mistake. 1.8 billion, let's say, Muslims in the world. And he says, look how many people won Nobel Prizes. Well, okay, let me ask you a question. How many black people have won Nobel Prizes? Let me ask you a question. How many black people?
Hang on.
Black is a race.
That's
Muslim is a religion.
I just want to interact. I'm sorry that I come back. Right. So here's Tyson is talking about the Nobel Prizes, right? So
Yeah.
On one side, Mimi Hijabi is right.
Yeah.
Right. When he's saying it's not a real good measurement, because of course Nobel Prize didn't exist back then, right?
Exactly.
So you can say it. Oh yeah, because of that he's right. But since it existed, if you look up the percentage of the Muslim participations who win the Nobel Prize, it's really, really, really low. And the reason is not because they are stupid or something. They are just not allowed to follow the science because they have to confirm God.
They're also held back to, like in Pakistan, the example I gave of Dr. Abdul Qadir Khan, he was vilified for a while, that is, and there were some great minds that were vilified within their own communities, that is, within their own Islamic communities. So it's so there is the there are some great minds in the Muslim world. They're just
I will not. It's not like I'm not denying it, right? Yeah. But you look. The point is, you have to look at the percentage, right?
Yeah.
So there are the fucking Jews. I'm allowed to say it because I'm one.
You're
right?
Jewish.
Right. I'm allowed to say that, right? Which made like a 0. Whatever percent of the population, and they compared to that, a lot of the Nobel Prizes. Right, and there are the Christians, which they won a lot of it, and there are the atheists, which won a lot of that. But then you look at the Muslims, and if you compare just of the people who won it, and then if you relate it to the percentage of what the share is of the population, like I don't know, 14 billions. 15 billion people, right? It's insignificant. And the reason for it is because they are not allowed to go against the book. That's the reason. That's why, Yeah, that's why the science in the Islamic world is not really valued. There might be some people who are fighting against the regime or fighting against the rules, right? But they are suppressed by the countries or whatever, and they are not allowed to do their work. I think if all those Muslim countries would allow the scientists to do their stuff openly, there'll be much more people who win the Nobel Prize.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it's not the fault that the Muslims are stupid or whatever.
No.
It's like the scientists are suppressed.
Yeah. I think
the
especially
Muslim
about
area.
with the from like you said the different regimes that we've had, like you have the Taliban regime in Afghanistan, you had the Ayatollahs in Iran, you have the Saudi Arabians, you have like even Palestine's kind of like in a mess. You have Pakistan had military regime for 32 plus years, and has held back its scientists as well as there are countless examples. Even Malaysia is becoming more and more, kind of weirdly obsessing over religion rather than the science itself. So yeah, there is that big clash between the Islamic religion practically as well as scientific study. There is a big clash between them.
It's what the scientists are allowed to do, and how they are allowed to present their studies, right? And so this is the reason why, because this black guy we are talking about, I forgot his name, I'm sorry about that. What video are you watching?
Degrassi Tyson?
Yes. So what he is telling us, that there was a golden age of Islamic culture. This was there because they were studying that there was a time where Islam was not like a doctrine, whatever. They were like just enjoying to listen and to read other cultures, not only conquering them, right? Just read other sources from Greece or whatever the word was. They were translating all the books into Arabic. They are like collecting them and translating them. And then, like Tyson said, there came this guy, forgot again his name, and said,
Al-Ghazali.
and you don't need to watch this because this is not in the Quran. And since then, there was a tendency that everything which goes against the Quran or against the knowledge is not valid enough. And this is how the golden age of Islam died. Practically died.
Yeah.
Before that, it was growing. They were interested. They were translating stuff, collecting stuff, whatever. And after that, this guy told them to not to do it. And this is how the Islamic Scientific Society died and was not able to evolve or even to present their discoveries, right? And you see it, and Nobel Prize is not something like it's ancient thing. Nobel Prize it's if you look at history, a recent thing, right?
Yeah.
So, and it means just in recent times, the Muslims are just not allowed to do this stuff. They are not allowed to present discoveries because it goes against the Quran.
That's partially true, and partially also it's the backlash as well as the the political, religious, socio-political situation. I kind of mixed the three together because it does go hand in hand within the.
Yeah. Anyways, guys, we got 10 more minutes for the live show, so I'll finish up the video.
Okay.
Yes, let's
Yes.
finish this up.
I will
We've got
shut
10
up
more
now.
minutes.
Okay.
Now, if I say that to you and you say, well, that's because of poverty and slavery and all of those things and colonialism, okay, all of those excuses can be afforded to the Muslim world, much of which have been colonized, especially after the Ottoman fall. So disenfranchisement and poverty and all those things.
There was enslavement from the start. What is he talking about?
Yeah, it's a lot like the Ottoman Empire conquered half of the world, or let's say the Near East, whatever, right? And then it collapsed, right? And now he's saying
the biggest region from Spain and France until the Chinese borders.
Right. And what he is talking about? It's just because they lost the word and now they were enslaved. What the fuck is this guy talking about?
What is he talking about? There's only like...
You can make the same excuses. And then he compares us with Jewish people, which is a false comparison. I don't know why he does that, because obviously... And the Nobel Prize, I mean, let's be honest. The Nobel Prize, and this just shows me how much of an Uncle Tom you are, with all due respect. Yes, because you respect the white man so much that when...
Come on.
You're sitting here sucking the old white man's dick by wanting a Nobel Prize. How dare you? You're bending over for the white man.
What kind of weird?
All right, you're taking it up the bum for the white man.
All right, let's listen to this nonsense now.
The white man and his institutions, they decide who wins the Nobel Prize because it's obviously ideologically linked, right? It's to the Western post-Enlightenment experience. They decide who wins the Nobel Prize.
Isn't this guy living in the UK as he says this bullshit? Why doesn't he go live in Afghanistan?
Yeah, you think that's somehow a measure of objective scientific discovery and enterprise and so on? And that's why you could never, ever debate a Muslim who knows just a little bit of Islam, a little bit of history. You would never step forward and put yourself, your neck on the academic chopping board, because you know what would happen. What would happen is the people would see an intellectual decapitation. So you roll back into the hole that you came from, and if you don't offer the apology, then you got to live with the humiliation. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Yeah, bye-bye, Mimi Hijab.
Oh my god, he actually mentions decapitation, but academic decapitation, but then like directly, what do you really decapitate him when he was in your... What?
But yeah, let's take this to Discord. Pouya, I think I sent you the Discord link. You jump in. So in the after show channel, we usually discuss off air as well, non-recorded, just a discussion with the audience members and all.
Okay.
But yeah, I think we should wrap this up. Thank you guys so much for joining today. Thank you, Pio. Thank you, Pouya, for joining us and explaining about your book and actually putting up with Mohammed Hijab. Thank you so much for being an assistance to us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Nick, as always. And we'll see. Also, happy Ramadan, everybody. We'll do a Ramadan episode next week. And we're going to look into the history of Ramadan, the scientific perspective. We'll look at the pre-Islamic perspective as well as moral perspective. So we'll look at it from other angles. But yeah, thank you so much. And I think my brain needs a little break. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. I'll be in the Discord. Pouya, are you going to join us there? Or?
Yeah, sure.
All right, join these guys at Discord. But for me,
I'll be there.
All right, bye, guys.
Bye.